Hey, it's Darren. It's November the 5th, 2025, and I want to share some reflections on leadership and self-mastery, specifically for queer change makers who want to lead with more clarity and conviction. A little while ago, I put out a question. I announced that I'm working on a book on leading with queer integrity. And if anyone had any questions or things they were struggling with, that I could address through different parts of the book so that, you know, they could get their questions answers and could use what it is I'm teaching. So one of my colleagues put forth the question, what is my role in leading change, especially during a polycrisis? What's my role in leading change, especially during a polycrisis? Interesting question. First of all, it assumes your leader. Now, he is asking that question from a place in which he sees himself as a leader, as a coach. Um, and he and I had a brief discussion about this challenge. There is so much going on in the world right now. Social media is distracting. It is keeping us from focusing on what is more important. Now, don't get me wrong. Social media can sometimes be fun. I love watching cute videos of dogs because, I love my dog. I can't help it. It also can sometimes show us the things that the mainstream media is not showing us, the really important things that are happening in the world that are not being shown because the media is owned by somebody else that is trying to not offend somebody in power. But then there's also the crap that happens on social media because it's such a source of brevity, meaning it's too short, it doesn't get in depth. And we are challenged right now in this society, and it speaks to the problem. What's my role in leading change, especially during a polycrisis? We can't snap our fingers and find an solution and then go off and try and fix it. It doesn't work that way. It has never worked that way. It's never going to work that way because the world is complex. Because we're close to 8 billion people or whatever the number is, and that's 8 billion individuals, many of whom are following one particular leader or one faith-based belief system or one political ideological system, or they just don't fucking care. Be that as it may, we can't individually focus on a polycrisis. It's too much. It is simply too much. Case in point. So the Canadian government delivered yesterday the new budget. Now it's going to be debated in Parliament to determine whether or not that will pass and whether the current Liberal government will maintain enough of a vote so that we don't have to call an election, so that the government is not defeated in trying to pass this new budget. I'm not going to speak about the budget or the right or the wrong, but the amount of people that were required to build that budget out, and I think it's like 1,000-page document that is then sent to all of the party leaders or the other politicians to review so they can make determinations. I have no idea how many people would be involved in doing that budget. But imagine there's budget for finance, there's budget for education, there's budget for immigration, there's budget for military, there's budget for social housing, and all of those different budget categories require different experts in different fields. It also required, over the last couple of months, different organizations meeting with different representatives of the government to make their case about why they needed funding for A, B, and C, and how much funding they needed for A, B, and C. And then all those people come together and start trying to figure things out. And then you've got your accountants and your bookkeepers and your number crunchers that are taking all of that information and trying to piece it all together. No one single person can do a budget for a country the size of Canada. It's hard enough doing a budget for your own life sometimes, right? A polycrisis is just another way of saying many things at once. And for us to have any kind of peace of mind so that we can do the work that will create a positive, or what we intend to be a positive and meaningful effect, a lasting change, we can realistically only focus on one thing at a time. Now, that doesn't mean you can't stand up for a couple of different causes. Maybe you belong to a particular organization. Maybe your work is, supporting a particular set of rights or a particular set of financial needs, whatever the case may be. I'm speaking a little bit abstractly. But for you to be effective, you've really got to stay within that box of what you're working on, to use your wisdom, your knowledge, and skills, and then to pull from other people in your community, in your network, in your organization, to support you in accomplishing that goal. You might, on weekends or every couple of weeks, give a little bit of your time to another organization. Perhaps you volunteer. That organization itself is the umbrella that's doing the bulk of the work. You're just giving a little bit of your time because that makes you feel good about yourself, and that you're committing some more of your time and energy to community commitment outside of your full-time focus, your full-time obligations. Does that make sense? So what is my role in leading change, especially during a polycrisis? Want to read something from a book that's called The Wen Tzu, Understanding the Mysteries, the Further Teachings of Lao Tzu. This is almost a companion to the Tao Te Ching. It is, as far as I know, there's only one single English translation by Thomas Cleary. And it just goes into so much more detail, often repeating, not repeating the words or the ideas, but working on the the concepts and the ideas you'll find in the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching, but at greater length. It makes understanding the Tao Te Ching that much easier. So this is a wonderful metaphor that speaks to this question. No one uses flowing water for a mirror. Still water is used for a mirror. By keeping thus inwardly, you become still and are not scattered outwardly. So the metaphor works in a couple of ways. Inner stillness. Still waters run deep, meaning you can also see to the depth if the water is clear enough, right? You can see into who you are, what you stand for, what you believe, and you can have clarity in the still waters, peace of mind, the still waters. But you also have that contentment to breathe easily, figure out what matters, and to have the emotional balance, the kinds of feelings and emotions that you most feel comfortable with, so that you can rationally, logically, critically, thoughtfully consider how it is you're going to support, make a difference, lead, be the change. As soon as those waters get murky, is that because you're doing more than you can handle, more than you can do at one time? So that, I think, really for me is the big answer to what's my role in leading change, especially during a polycrisis. The first priority is taking care of yourself. If you don't feel well, you can't lead well. Create the still waters. When we are not still inside, we're agitated. So I grew up ADHD. And I learned over the years how to manage that without medication. I still have my moments. I've had a rough couple of weeks. Yesterday, I could not type. My dyslexia from childhood came back. I was typing, and it wasn't that, nonsensical letters were coming out. Completely different words were coming out than what I had in my mind. I thought I was losing my mind, but I recognized how stressed, how unsettled, how not still I was on the inside. I literally felt like I had the shakes. The only way I was able to continue communication for most of the day in my work was to dictate, to do speech to text, because the more I tried to type, the more frustrated I got, the more angry I got. And you see, when things become choppy, when the surface of the water gets messed up, that spreads. And if you keep feeding that instead of backing off from it, you're only going to have a polycrisis, right? In the extreme, you're only going to be trying to focus on too many things, trying to focus on something, and you can't focus because you can't see the reflection in the stillness of the water because it's all messed up and disrupted. How we make a difference is how we make a really effective difference is focusing on what we can do best, what is most important to us, recognizing that we can't do everything, maybe allocating just a little bit of a time in the day or the week to that thing that we know can't be our greatest intentional focus, asking for support and giving support. That's the thing I want to leave you with. And it's something I love and admire about great leaders. Great leaders do not stand alone, nor do they stand on the shoulders of others. They do not power over, they do not put themselves on pedestals. They are looking up or ahead to other leaders who they are inspired by, who they seek coaching or mentorship or help from to make them even better leaders. And it's this constant cycle back and forth because it's not about finding a leader who's better than you. It's finding another leader who has either wisdom or experience in areas of life that you don't. And that has very little to do with age or race or gender. It has to do with experience and knowledge. And when we come together in community, we build connection, we build bridges, we build resilience. We lift ourselves up, we make ourselves stronger, we allow ourselves to give and receive support. And collectively, this creates a stillness effect because we can get that clarity to deal with what's most important and what's most meaningful. So the question for you today, maybe there's a couple of questions. Are you focusing on too many things? Is that perhaps the reason why you are so scattered, why you're so frustrated? Are you feeling frustrated, angry, or rageful? That's what I was feeling the last couple of days because I was allowing things to get out of control in my life and I hadn't asked for some support. How can I support you? That would be a question I would ask. What are you struggling with in your leadership as a queer leader right now? What would be the one thing that if you and I were sitting down and having a conversation that I could best support you with to get those waters still? So you could take that deep breath and look inward to find the truth of what really drives you so that you could put all of your focus and energy on being the most effective at making the difference, at making the change that will make you feel the most alive, the most vital, the most aligned with your values and your convictions. So feel free to drop me a line, to connect with me for a conversation. Ask me a question below. I'd love to hear what you're confronting at the moment that is putting you out of alignment or is making you feel internally disrupted and like unstill waters.